And so I've actually already started my stream here, just so we can give people a couple seconds to roll in.
No, I've been streaming.
Awesome, awesome. We've got Shalom Shire Fam in the chat, Flat Earth Lover in the chat. Welcome. Sure, Space Audits will be with us here in just a moment. And so tonight's presentation, well, I'll wait for Alan. We will all quietly wait for Alan.
Thou shalt.
All right, we are live.
Perfect.
Toby, whenever you want to intro us in.
Perfect.
Thank you, everyone, for being here for Æther Round Table number 32. We are going to talk tonight about Moonlight. Maybe some of you have heard these rumors about cold moonlight. What does that even mean? Even light itself, if it's a warming light, is the light itself warm, or is it just warming things? I mean, I think the physics of that get a little bit more complex. So calling it cold moonlight in the first place, I mean, we don't actually know what would be going on there, why things would be cooling. So it can be, yeah, it's kind of a complicated topic. And I never took it very seriously, and we'll get into it in a little bit here, but until I was prompted to do some direct measurements of it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this pre-recorded video I put together with a number of different sources and a bit of my own stuff as well.
It's the Moonlight Cools experiment once again, the second time. Our beaming Moonlight. We have our T-post driver. We have box, which has been shading it from the moonlight. This time we have a infrared thermometer. Should be a little more accurate. Let's see what we get this time. All right, the exposed side is reading 37.9. Let's go ahead and start moving that towards the side that has been shaded. There's prime.
Hey, it's Toby. Thank you for being here for Æther Cosmology Roundtable number 32 regarding Moonlight. And specifically, we're going to talk a bit about cold moonlight and if that's a thing or if there's something else that's maybe causing it. Then if that's the case, why are there so many convincing measurements of it? And then after that, we're going to talk just a little bit about the nature of the moon itself. But just to get us started here, I'm going to tell you that if you go and seek out an earnest answer to this question, you're going to find an awful lot of gaslighting. So I'm going to save you all of that and show you the best actual rebuttal to the cold moonlight that I've seen from somebody online. And then after that, we're going to look at a bunch of examples of people doing measurements of the moonlight. So let's go ahead and get into it.
Cold moonlight is a claim that is used to support another claim, that the moon is not reflecting sunlight, but is generating its own. The moon is not reflecting sunlight, they say. We know this because moonlight is cooling. If it were reflecting sunlight, then moonlight would warm things. Okay. But what is that claim about? Well, that claim is used to support yet another globe denier claim, that the sun and moon are nearby objects. Well, nearby. Some say they're not even objects at all. But the reality is, the light pattern on the moon, the phases of the moon, are perfectly in line with the positions of the sun and moon if the objects are great distances away that science claims.
So?
And could not appear that way if the objects were close.
Yeah, I will chime. We
guy's
can
the
go ahead and
debunker.
pause and actually chime in here and just say that, yeah,
Yeah, this is Sapien.
oh,
This
you
is
know
the
this
guy
guy. Okay,
who,
Sapien. Gotcha.
Tried to hit
Okay.
us up on Tides too. I still gotta watch that.
Yeah.
No, my
so-
reaction to that point was so. Sorry to interrupt, but
no,
like,
you're good.
man.
I did want to interject here
I
myself.
was
as
hoping he
well.
would have some substance.
Oh, you know what? I'm on. Sorry, I was muted on Discord, but I was talking to my stream. Yeah, I didn't realize that you were familiar with this guy, but that makes sense. And I had the same same response. I did want to pause here and just kind of chime in, right? Like that this is just making some assertions about what the medium should be, making assertions that there could be no refraction and that everything should be in its exact position, when even NASA themselves have said that everything in the sky is in an apparent position. So,
All I see here is another bozo who's never done the work.
well, let's keep watching.
Well, show me the data, Sapien.
Close
I'm ready.
And the moon was reflecting sunlight. But instead of discarding the idea of the sun and moon being nearby, they chose to discard the idea of the moon reflecting sunlight and push the idea that the moon is generating its own light. Why? Because one of the fundamental features of globe denial is denial. If science does not support their claim, they deny the science. They do not change the claim. So that is how we got to cold moonlight. So for my experiment, I had 5 configurations. A couple of standard
goody.
configurations, standard in that it's the configurations that are the way globe deniers have been doing it most of the time, and 3 variations to bring additional data. I'm showing the layout in the daylight here because the night shots are kind of hard to see. So what I had were these 2 outdoor chairs with cushions, as you will later see, facing into the moonlight. One chair is positioned under the umbrella while the other is off to the side in full view of the moon with nothing overhead. I also had a table set up which was in full view of the moon, and I made use of some plywood and cardboard boxes to block the moonlight. Now, in addition to the infrared thermometer, I purchased a set of 5 classic thermometers. Their uniform manufacture means that they are made of the same materials, have the same level of reflectivity, and thus should be reliable surfaces to sample with the infrared thermometer, in addition to the fact that they will tell us their temperature at all times. After leaving them all out in the moonlight together for a few hours, they all read 47 degrees. A chilly night by California standards, with the thermometer labeled C being a hair higher, but not to the point of being 48 degrees. Now let's see what happened. The samples in configuration 1 were matching thermometers, matching Thinking is Critical t-shirts, and matching seat cushions. The thermometer in the moonlight, thermometer A, read 42 degrees. The shirt in the light was 47.6,
Okay.
give or take. The cushion was 47.2 and a bit lower. And the
Well, let him-
thermometer
give him
A
a minute.
surface
He does
was
a couple of tests here.
46.6.
Oh, man.
Thermometer B under the canopy was 44 degrees. The shirt was 49.6, the cushion 48.8, and the thermometer surface 48.6 and a little less. Let me put all that up at once. Doing the math, the objects in the moonlight were 1.9 degrees cooler on the average. Does this mean that moonlight is cooling? Well, one way to tell is if I tried it again, but without the moon involved. So I waited a few days so the moon would appear later and later until I had a night with no moon in the sky. I tried it again. It's a similar setup, except this time there's no moon above. The one chair is under the canopy and the other chair is under the open sky. The open air thermometer reads just under 39 degrees. The shirt, 41.7. This wood is 41.9, but I won't put that into the average because it wasn't in the first batch. The thermometer surface is 40.5, and the cushion is 36.4. Under the canopy, the thermometer reads 40 degrees. The shirt is 43.2, the wood 42.3, the thermometer surface is at 41.7, and the cushion is 39.5, for an average difference of 1.7 degrees cooler in the open air. And that's with me calling the open air thermometer 39 degrees when I know it's a bit lower. In other words, the results are the same, moon or no moon. An object under the open sky cools faster than an object under cover. The moonlight is not cooling. The sky is. You see, the open sky is cool and all objects radiate heat. An object in the open sky radiates its heat relatively freely and cools down, while an object under a blocked sky radiates its heat as much as it can, but it also receives heat from the object blocking the sky, and thus it cools at a slower rate. It's called radiative cooling. Look it up. To test this, I came up with a few more scenarios on that first night with the moon, which I will go through quickly, so this isn't too long. I set up these objects on this table with this board blocking the moonlight for one set of the objects. Here's the data from that. Then I took a similar board and leaned it over the open sky object, making sure to be at an angle that didn't block the moonlight. And then I left them for another 30 minutes. And even though this set is still in the moonlight, it is no cooler, because it has heat radiating objects near it, just like the other set. I made one more variation to the original canopy setup that first night under the moon. Leaving everything where it was, I took large sections of plywood, about half the area of the overhead canopy, and set them next to the objects that were in the open moonlight. I came back 30 minutes later, and lo and behold, the temperature difference disappeared as the moonlit set received radiating heat from the wood, just as the other set did from the overhead canopy. The moonlight was not cooling. But what if it was? What if there was a heretofore unknown natural form of light that cooled objects? Would that mean that the moon couldn't be reflecting sunlight? Is there a property or law of physics that says cooling light must...
All right, so he's about to start pontificating or whatever about the moon. So before he goes off base here too far, Stone, did you have thoughts about his measurements or whatever you want to call it?
Well, I think I would be letting some of the cat out of the bag with what I think you're also going to be presenting here, but I will say that his material choices were abysmal. He's using an IR thermometer, which is correct with laser sight, to focus on where you're taking your temperature, and that's all fine and dandy, but he's pointing them at fabrics and white plastic that's glossy on the thermometer itself. It's I don't know where to go with this guy. It's just so unscientific. I mean, I'm sure you can tell that I was going to be saying that based on the data that I presented, and I'll let you get to that later, of course. But that's my first impression here, is that this really was poorly executed.
Yeah, and so actually, I'm glad you're here because I don't actually have your data on hand. I certainly want to present it as part of tonight. But I can go grab it from your Telegram. But
Yeah, I could post you the links on where to find them, and you can just yank them if you like. That's fine, sure.
Cool. I did not get to do the analysis we had discussed a couple weeks ago. I just simply didn't have the time.
Wow.
But I do want to do that at some point. But yeah, we'll get to that later. Let's let him now continue with his I would say theorizing about the moon.
Pontificating was good.
Yeah, pontificating is good. Yeah, you're right. Let's just go with pontificate.
must be self-generated? Do we have examples of natural objects generating cooling light? No.
Let's turn this
So
up a little
even
bit
if the
more.
light from the moon was cooling, which it is not, it could still be reflecting sunlight, which it is. Don't believe me? Well, there's a simple test we can do, and it's one of the reasons it took me so long to get this video out. I had to wait until the right conditions, a clear day when the sun and the moon could be seen in the same sky, which I was able to find on Saturday, December 1st. This simple test will show not only that the sun is the light source on the moon, but also that the sun and moon are not local objects, but are quite distant. All you need is the sun and the moon in the sky and something like this ball in the foreground. The geometry is simple. If the sun and moon are local, then at this moment the sun and moon are closer to each other than they are to this ball, and thus the angle of sunlight hitting this ball will be drastically different from the sunlight striking the moon. But if the sun really is as far away as science claims, this ball and the moon are essentially the same distance away from the sun, and the light striking them will be at the same angle. This ball and the moon will show the same phase. This has been done before. It's nothing new, yet it is constantly being ignored by the globe-denying crowd, so I'm doing it here again. There's the moon. I have the ball in the foreground. I just need to move into a position where I can capture the moon and the ball from the same angle, because my position relative to the ball affects how its phase appears to me. There's the moon, and here's the ball. This ball only has one direct light source, the sun, and its phase matches that of the moon,
Pause it
because
right
the
there if you
moon
can.
has only one direct light source.
Notice
So-
that in the foreground there is a pronounced
Well,
hot
hold on.
spot
Yeah.
lighting
So
up
let
that
me
ball.
let's let it
The
play. Let's let
sun.
it play.
And for the phases to match, the sun has to be just as far
I
away
did.
from the
I
moon
did
as it
maybe
is
take
from
a
this small
little
ball.
bit of editorial
It cannot be small
liberties
and
right
local.
here.
All right.
The sun and moon are not small and local, and the moon does not emit cooling light. Is that therefore evidence that the Earth is a globe and not flat? No. It's only evidence that the globe claims match reality, and that any flat Earth concept that contains a nearby sun and moon or cooling moonlight is demonstrably false.
Hear that?
Any
It's
proposal
nice,
claiming
bro.
those elements can and will be dismissed. Come up with something new, people. Something that recognizes the true distance of the sun and the moon, or you will be dismissed.
Infrared device, and it is an extremely clear night with a extremely bright full moon. There goes a car down the road, huh? You can actually still see the brakes on my tires are a little warm there. So got a full moon.
Real quick, I didn't have a citation pop up on here, but this is Ken Wheeler. You can look him up as Theoria apoptosis, something like that. But really, you just look up Ken Wheeler, you'll find him. It's but it's
We can't
Theoria.
hear you, Toby.
What's that? Oh yeah. Whoops. Once again, sorry. I'm having to mute in two spots, so I'm screwing up with that. So I apologize. But yeah. So this is Ken Wheeler, aka Theoria apoptosis. If you just look up Ken Wheeler, you'll find Theoria something. That's this guy. Just to cite him. But let's let him continue.
And we've got a shadow. So let's do in the light of the full moon, 16 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 degrees Fahrenheit, 13, 12, 12, yeah, okay. Here we are in the shadow. You can't see the shadow, but I am absolutely pointing it in the shadow. 22 degrees average, 22, 21, 22. Let's go outside. 18, 19. This is in the moonlight. 20, 19, 19. Also in the moonlight over here. 17, 15, 14. And this is in the shadow right here. Here's the base of the shadow. The base of the shadow, of course, since the moon's been rising, is the spot. Yeah, right here, 24, 23 degrees. I'll make sure I'm in the shadow. Yeah, there we go. 19 degrees. Hey, waving at my reflection. There you go. I'm in the shadow. Am I in the shadow? No, I was not. There we go. Yeah, I am. 18, 19 degrees, 19 degrees, 19.7, 19.8. In the moonlight, 16 degrees, 15 degrees. Also in the moonlight, 17, 17. Well, what do you know?
The full moon light versus the shaded moonlight. I have a mat out here in the yard. The left side is full moonlight, the right side is moon shade. I don't want the light to interfere with our testing, so I'll do it quick. .2. I'm testing with an infrared thermometer. And this is full moonlight. .4. 2 degrees different. This side is full moonlight, and that side is moon shade. Moon shade. Moon shade is definitely warmer than direct moonlight. Totally opposite from what the sun does. The sun shade is cooler and moon shade is warmer. They have complete opposite properties.
My name is Jerry Rogers, and I'm a little podunk town south of here or north of here called Shallowater, and we're going to do a moonlight test. And the moonlight currently in the shade, I'm going to get a recording of somewhere around 40 degrees. And then we go over here to the moonlight full on, and we've got 32.5. 33, somewhere right in that area. And you can go right back over here, around to 40.
Now, would that be because we're looking at incandescent light coming down right here, or could
If
do
you
it in
want to
shadow?
go over there, I don't care.
It's the same either way.
It's either way. Apparently the moon don't seem to matter.
Okay.
Just
So
as long as you can get the
there's a
moonlight
shadow like right here?
itself and the shade of the moon.
So that's the shade. In the shade, it's 39 degrees.
This is about as unscientific as it gets.
And you got 32.
32.
Yeah.
Next
But
to his
then it-
vehicle, next to his
32,
house.
33.
Yeah.
But mostly I just wanted to clip
Is it
it
more
for,
dramatic when it gets
what he
darker?
says at the end is kind of
It seems to be more dramatic when the moon is fullest.
So the moon, like on a full moon,
Like the fullest
completely
moon,
dark
I'm getting
night.
sometimes 12 degrees.
12 degrees. So
Yeah.
the more full the moon is, the cooler it is.
It seems to be.
It's a half moon right now.
Don't ask me why, because I don't know. But I know it works every time I've tried it, everywhere I've tried it. Don't matter if I'm at the ranch or at Shallowater, or went over to my 85-year-old uncle's house and did it in his front yard, and he made me go buy him one.
Yeah, okay, good.
6. She can read the letters.
Oh, come on, that's reflective steel, isn't it?
57. 67. 68.
These are like backyard cookout ideas. There's the moon. There's the side that's in the moonlight. 37 degrees in the moonlight. 47 degrees in the not moonlight. So what is that? There's nothing covering over top of this. It's just sitting right out here in the open. One side's in the moonlight, one side's not. So how, if that moon's reflecting sunlight, is it reflecting cold light? Moon shadow. Moonlight.
I would say this one, yeah.
Moonlight.
All
Here we
quite
got us a
flawed.
full moon tonight. We also got our four-sided post. One side in the moonlight, one in the moon shade. We're currently in the shade. 29 degrees. Moving over to the light side. 15 degrees. How do you like that?
Test. Got a plain piece of cardboard, piece of aluminium. As you can see, the moon is 95% tonight. Test in the shade of concrete, about 11 and a half. In the light, about 9. Final test for the cardboard in the shade, about 7 degrees. And in the light, about 3 aluminium. In the shade, 8 degrees Celsius. In the light, pretty much 0.
All right, so I never took these measurements of quote-unquote cold moonlight very seriously. Sorry, I'm going to pause there real quick and just interject that obviously a lot of those were very flawed quote-unquote measurements for experimentation. You really need to be taking into account radiant heat sources. You really need to be taking into account the sky and, you know, essentially the temperature of the sky. But I would like to see more measurements, kind of like what Sapien was doing. And actually, if you look at the data from what he had there, it still was not conclusive that the sunlight or the moonlight was not, cooling. Even from his, very weak experimentation there, I would have not have called it conclusive. And I don't know how much I discussed this here, but I just want to say that when I did this myself, I took enough readings in enough places that for me personally, it seemed like it was not just related to how open it was to the sky, but really particularly to the angle to the moon and the delineation line between the moonlight and the shade. I'm open to being convinced otherwise, but from what I've seen, that's what my observations led me to believe. But let me get back to the video here. This is Toby, by the way, from Æther Cosmology. Until November 28th, 2023, my brother talked me into doing the temperature reading measurement with him on a very cold night with a very bright full moon. And so we went out and we took measurements on asphalt, pavement, and stone, I believe it was. It was 3 different mediums because we took them in different areas throughout the yard. And we took them in a variety of different shaded areas. And we specifically tried to find areas where the sky wasn't being blocked too much. I kept checking for a gradient where I would go 2 spots in the shade, 2 spots in the light. And the delineation always seemed to be right where the shade started and the light ended. And there was a very clear delineation. It was not like a gradient like you would expect from a building which is radiating heat or something along those lines. And the sun had been set for multiple hours. It was... apparently the time on this file is not set properly because it says 3 p.m. But I know that it was in the middle of the night. It was very late. I want to say it was around 2 a.m. or so. But I'd have to go back and verify. I could figure that out, I believe. But in any case, I was very convinced on this night, and I still am fairly convinced. Although I will say, after seeing a couple of the other experiments that I've shown that were shown earlier, I do see how there are some confounding variables that need to be accounted for. And so I want to continue forward with this, but try and account for more and more variables. I think doing this over a period of time would especially be beneficial. But without further ado, here are my measurements. or at least the videos from that night. This will be me, my brother, and my niece.
Full moon. Today, it's Saturday. We're going to test the shaded area and the lit up area, which is clearly delineated. Go ahead, Abby. 17.2, okay.
Okay.
17.4. All right. Come over here.
16.9. 16.9. Or
Here, come here. See right here.
16.9. It's saying.
Can I go back to the shade?
17.2 or 17.4. 17.8.
Can I come back over the light? I'll leave it there for a second. Okay, look right here.
That's not where we did it last time. Oh, wow. 14.7.
So out of the moonlight, we have
28.6.
Okay.
No, 0.4. And
in the moonlight.
26. Huh. Because there's 28.4, now it's 25.
That's up by 3 degrees, Toby?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Now, these recordings obviously aren't impressive, and we weren't really set up to do an impressive experiment or take an impressive measurement. We went out, it was cold out, we took some readings, we recorded some of them because we thought it was, not what we expected. And then we took a bunch more readings, and we took readings in all sorts of different areas with shade and moonlight, places where it seemed like both areas were equally exposed to the sky, and it still kept seeming like their area under the shade was always warmer than in the moonlight. Now, like I said previously, I think putting more stringent controls on this would be good. I think doing it over a long period of time would be good. And yeah, I'd like to just in general see more controls, more experiments. I've heard a lot of mixed results from a lot of people within our community here, but mostly things that convince me that the moonlight is indeed colder. So let's figure it out. Now, if we do in fact not see the proper amount of heat coming from this light that should be reflected from the sun on the moon, then what does that mean? And on top of that, look at the spectroscopic readings of the moonlight and we can observe from that it does not match the spectroscopic readings of the sun. Well, what does this mean? It means the moon can't be a rock in the sky. And when we look at the way that light reflects, we can deduce that from that as well. Now, there could be some kind of proximity effect that causes the effects of the crescent moons and the waning moons, or the phases of the moon, but it's just speculation. Now, before everyone thought that the moon was a rock in the sky, there were other theories. So let's listen to one of those.
Here is the sea, Mr. Sanders, so calm and apparently unchanging, and yet it is part of my new conception about the nature of the world at this same.
Sorry, real quick, just want to say, I know a lot of us have probably already seen this guy before. This is the full thing, the full 9 minutes or so. And he says a lot of interesting things. The guy, he believes in planets, quote unquote. So we'll listen to him, give his theory about that. But he also just says a lot of interesting things about the scientific community in general at this point in time. And so for that reason, in addition to his interesting theories about the moon, or interesting theory about the moon, I like this. So yeah.
See, many times in the past history of our Earth has rolled over the surfaces of the land masses, sweeping away all life and vegetation, and eventually turning again to its former bed.
This is the part of the biblical theory of the flood and the theory of people of other races.
Oh yes, this actual event, the last one, is recorded in all the sacred scriptures of all the old civilizations, from the Hindus to the Bible.
Mr. Foster, before we go on with that, you've made a number of predictions, scientific predictions, which you've claimed have come true. Now, what are those predictions, and how do you make this claim?
All based on the new notion that the physical invariance principles of contemporary science are invalid. And I stated this first in a manuscript reviewed in Australia in 1954. And the validity of this statement was confirmed finally last year at Princeton, when the principle of time reversal invariance was found to be invalid.
Who accepts the fact that you have made these predictions?
Well, the facts as such are undeniable and must be accepted because they're documented. And it was accepted at such at Oxford, at the Tasmanian University, and also at the National University. The facts as such are accepted, but the explanations and the new views as yet are not.
Do you mean to say that you reject all the basic principles of science established since Aristotle's day?
No, it does not mean that. I state and maintain that those concepts and interpretations of science, which are still based today on Aristotelian logic, have a certain purpose, but that is defined by a statement as that a spade is a spade or a fine chisel is a fine chisel. But these concepts are inadequate for a complete understanding of the real nature of the world.
How is it possible, Mr. Foster, that you as an individual can work out these theories when all the other established scientists have computers and all the money of governments behind them, and yet they apparently can't?
I do not claim at all that this is due to my own intellect or to my own penetration. I have been deeply interested from early youth in the real nature of the world, and I held my own views and ideas. But many years ago, about 14 years ago, when I was challenging one of the fundamental conventional principles of science, I had a definite inspiration, not knowledge as such, but an indication and a guidance which I followed and which I worked very hard and to evolve into a new structure of understanding.
Inspirations are related to thoughts of genius. Do you think or consider yourself to be a genius?
No. I consider myself to be an ordinary, humble person who wants to serve mankind with what man has striven for from the beginning of consciousness, with truth and understanding of the world.
Now, one thing, you have a theory about the moon, and we expect to be able to get observable facts about the moon fairly soon. What is your theory?
It is by now rather more than a theory. 10 or 11 years ago, I stated to various scientists that the moon is not a piece of rock, but it is plasma phenomena, cosmic plasma, and that this fact will eventually be confirmed. I made certain predictions which were already confirmed in 1958, and the situation now is coming close to a complete confirmation.
What will be the result if you're proved to be correct in your theories?
The result will be profound and decisive, because it will give proof that a complete reinvestigation of the laws of nature is necessary. Because if the moon is a plasma, no man will ever land on it. The soft landing attempts will all fail. That means that the mass of the moon is far less than is currently assumed. It's in a different state of energy, and it has far less mass. That means there is no more explanation for the tides. If the moon, for example, had only 1,000th part of its current mass, then the tides would only be 2 inches high under conventional theories instead of sometimes 14 feet. And that means that if it is proved that the moon is a plasma, then all gravitational theories are out, and the new concept of the cosmos and of its laws has to be evolved.
Aren't you being a bit adventurous, though, because you know that we're going to be able to test out your theories on the moon fairly soon?
Not anymore. 11 years ago, of course, it was rather taking a risk. I was considered a lunatic, of course, but by now the evidence, accumulated evidence, is already so much in my favor that I'm not taking any risks anymore. On the contrary, there is scientific views expressed all over the world now that the moon seems to be of a quite different nature of what was assumed.
The Americans and Russians are thinking of landing men on it.
Now, that will never happen. Not on the moon. On Mars, on Venus, on other planets, yes, but the moon is definitely, as I assert, a plasma.
Isn't there a slight contradiction? You mentioned the moon and the tides, Mr. Foster, and at the earlier part of the interview you talked about the tides sweeping over the Earth.
There is no contradiction there, because once the moon is proven not to be a piece of rock, not something of far less mass, and the gravitational theories are out and discarded, new concepts have to be involved which will show that the lawfulness of nature in the cosmos is identical to that in a hydrogen atom or in atomic processes. And when this is understood and worked out in full, it will be found that the physical processes of the Earth are quite different in geophysics of what is at present assumed, and that lawfully in certain periods, mostly during the ice ages, which occur every 200 million years, and there is a reason for that, the axis of the Earth suddenly tilts over. And when this happens, then you get the floods of the Bible were recorded before. The tides, the ordinary everyday tides, have an explanation, even if the moon had almost no mass at all, because they are field effects. They're induced by cosmic pressures which exist in the field of our solar system.
What's the benefit to mankind in your theories?
One, the first one, and the most important I would briefly put down is this. I think it is a new conception about the nature of the cosmic world and about the nature and the veracity of consciousness, conscience, of morality. At present we have a glaring contradiction in the assertions of fundamental science. Scientists assert that they are completely uninhibited in their pursuit of truth, that they're completely uninhibited in their pronouncements, and that they produce for mankind, out of their knowledge or understanding, means which man can use according to his moral nature. So if the scientist produces a television set or jet car, jet motor car, or a hydrogen bomb, it is up to the common man then to use it in a manner which he finds according to his human nature. Yet, the very same processes of dialectics of science also declare that morality, concept of man's moral nature, is an illusion, that it is merely behaviorism or something due to conditioned reflexes or to herd instinct. And this, of course, is a contradiction which must be resolved, must go out. And it will be found as a consequence, what I had the privilege to see and to experience in my mind, that there is a moral law in the universe in which we partake and which is binding on us and which is decisive on our future. Now, in the practical aspects, when it is understood that the geophysical laws are quite different and that this tipping over of the Earth axis has occurred often, suddenly in the past, and will occur again, if the new view is elaborated, and I will not live long enough anymore to do that, it will be understood that the speed of light is not a universal constant as it is now the foundation of science, that it is changeable. And that perhaps 50 years before the next change of axis, there will be an increase in the speed of light. And if scientists will work out why and how, then there will be sufficient warning that mankind can prepare itself. Instead of building atom bomb shelters and hydrogen bombs by the millions, we will build provisions for making humanity floatable and to survive this crisis. So it comes again to the age-old concept that truth is the guidance, the hope, and the directive of the human mind, and that man must strive to understand and to know the real nature of the world.
And one more moon theory, just for fun, from Vibes of Cosmos. Real quick, before Vibes of Cosmos, just, this axis tilt flip-flop thing is pretty funny, too. I just kind of thought I'd mention that. I found that comical.
Every good theory has a villain, right? The Earth is going to kill you. You got to believe in my theory to predict when and where. So it's 200 million years out, boys. We'll get you those exact numbers, though. I'm like, all right, dude, bet. Tell me more about that.
Plasma moon. Cosmic electromagnetic energy coming from below reflects into the inner upper part of the field and is refracted and printed further down that is being focused. The moon is created at the boundary of the ionosphere with the Æther at a height of about 5,500 kilometers. Having a diameter of about 51 kilometers and shaped like a lens, it constitutes the negative refraction of cosmic energy. We have ionization of the element krypton or of the Æther in that area and the lower material field is imprinted, giving us the map of the Earth like an X-ray or the film negative, showing transparent the places where there is land while illuminating the places where there is water. It is a concentrated ionization of the ether of great precision, giving the essence of the background floor of the Earth.
That is it for the video presentation. But let's now, real quick, so yeah, I obviously, both of those videos, that other guy that was talking about the plasma moon, I mostly just thought in context that what he had to say was interesting. And then with Vibes of Cosmos, I don't know if I necessarily agree with all their distances and everything. But it's just another theory about what could be going on with the moon. So just thought I'd throw a couple of additional theories in there, but hopefully I didn't get us too far off track from the measurements, because now I'd like to really quickly take a look at Stone's stuff here. And in the meantime, while I pull this up, if anyone has any questions or thoughts.
Well, that was awesome. I think.
Yeah, that VOC chick at the end, does she do like full body massage? Can I book an appointment? That would be awesome.
Yeah, dude, she's like, this is concentrated ether, and I was like, I don't know what that is.
What's negative refraction?
I was like,
Yeah. I don't know though. Like when I was first just trying to conceptualize things, some of their stuff about I think they kind of have like a black hole sun type of theory along with the X-ray moon theory, and kind of helped me to have a alternative conceptualization of something, even if it wasn't perfect.
No, I do like their work.
So did Chris Cornell, and look at where that got him.
So
shout out to your boy.
Cold Moonlight.
If these are like if you're gonna end the show, I was gonna wait, but just a comment on the plasma plasma moon guy. There's a guy that comes around that we know that goes by Electric Universe, and he looked into the history. He couldn't find any history on that guy, even though it supports the plasma moon idea that the Electric Universe guys would tend to say. He was honest enough, at least, to say that he couldn't find any history on who that guy was. He did a deep dive into it, so that's kind of interesting.
That's
like the
really
guy didn't
interesting. Because like, either way, it's interesting, right? Like if it's a fake video, then that's really interesting. Why? Who? And then if it's a real video and the guy's been wiped from history, that's also, like, quite intriguing.
Yeah, I guess either way you wouldn't know. If it's been wiped from history, it's because he was telling the truth, or he just never existed to begin with, and they were doing it for another reason. Yeah, because we were expecting that was kind of like a Electric Universe show that was trying to get that put in there as like their next step. Which actually they may take that approach before they go flat Earth, or electric flat Earth is what we got, so I guess it's a step forward.
Oh, I can't open these in the... Oh. I'll just share my whole screen, 1 second.
Do you need sound for the next video?
No, so now we're just gonna look at Stone stuff. And Stone, I could either read your thing about it from the time, or if you want,
Yeah, go right ahead, fill them in.
I think that's a good way to do it. Okay, cool. So, yeah. Hey, space campers, here's a very special graph. It's some temperature data. Let me pull the graph up. Yeah. It's some temperature data from an experiment already performed by a few people out there sampling the effect of moonlight on the surface of a material and how the temperature changes in response to being hit with that moonlight. Last night was a full moon, and when it crossed due north at midnight, it was 55 degrees above the horizon. I used some scrap 2.5-ish millimeter thick steel to produce a few squares, some inch and a bit per side. To stick them to a piece of coated MDF, I used some 1/16 inch thick spongy double-sided tape, which acts as a bit of an insulator. The pieces are essentially floating on their own. For a surface coating, I went with 6 options: yellow, blue, orange, white, black, and uncoated, which tends to develop a rust covering when left to the elements. Let me just pull them up very quickly for you. There you go. The yellow and orange are highlighter levels in terms of intensity of color. The blue is galaxy blue, as fate would have it. That led to a slate of 6 pieces under the moonlight and an identical slate of 6 pieces next to them, but shaded. I used a fairly cheaply bought IR thermometer, pistol style with laser dot, and it doesn't really give solid, rock solid readings, values, especially when reading a reflective surface like uncoated steel, but it does a good enough job to produce a fairly narrow range of values when sampling. The result is a pretty graph which does indeed show the irrefutable cooling effect. Pull that back up. Of the moonlight. Where am I? Sorry, I lost my spot in my reading. The irrefutable cooling effect of the moonlight. In taking this 1 or 3 steps further, one might take the time and spend the cash to set up materials with embedded resistor based on temperature sensors for each piece, for each slate, and plot the changes in temperature over the 6-hour span of time when the moon is passing over. That would give us a time-plotted set of data that would be even more convincing than this data. And I would invite you to do precisely that. Let me know if you're the kind of person and would like some assistance in getting it done. The sun's light/heat is not bouncing off of the moon and hitting us down here. That is preposterous, and the data shows this truth in a fairly convincing way. Enjoy, Stone. So, yeah, let's pull the pictures back up here. So, yeah, there's image 1 here, and there's image 2. Here we go.
I was subsequently asked in the Stone Cold Truth channel months later about other variables that are involved, like what was I using to cause the shade, and that was just another 3-piece construction of that same MDF you saw in the picture, where it's about, I can barely remember, maybe 10 inches high and another 2 inches wider than that slab of 6 pieces comes out to, which is about 10 inches or something, and around 4 inches thick. And what you're looking at is about 1.5 inches thick, something around there, in terms of length by width. The width we're talking about here in this, the thickness in the case of how big the shade is over top of them. And I made it nice and small so that there wouldn't be that same overhang radiative trap influence that you saw in Sapien's video, the old guy's video next to his house, and the one guy shooting under cardboard teepees and that kind of thing. Those are all scenarios where the heat's being kept in. Here, I wanted to eliminate that variable.
Good. Yeah, well said. As far as that variable being pretty crucial. Whoops. Sorry, I don't know how to use this operating system.
While you're fixing it, the other thing I would say about Sapien's data is that he did it on his split board deck, and God knows what he's got going on underneath the deck. that could be affecting his temperature data strictly through convectional interference. We have no idea what's going on underneath. So, like, it couldn't be less scientific.
So yeah, does anyone have any questions? Any other questions about Stone's test or readings?
Yeah. There's images in the chat real quick. Let's
Can I
publicize.
Yeah. Can I see the irrefutable graph again, real quick? Let's see here. We got Moonlight, and we got Shaded, and we got one's way cooler than the other. Yeah. Okay. So just making sure we're all.
It's pretty straight up.
Yeah. We also took a poll in the chat. Is the moon cold AF or what? We're at 86% is yes, 14% no. So to the 14% of you, I don't know if you guys have seen or not, but if you look at the screen, there is an irrefutable graph presented by Stone. So maybe you want to change your vote. I don't know. Not gonna judge you for it, but
I mean, I will. But
it turns out it wasn't a poll. It was actually a skill testing question.
Well, I will say some of the arguments about the radiation of the sky are they're pretty difficult. I would say I would like to see something like Stone with your MDF board blocking the moonlight. Take that and take the readings over hours and see if the plates in the shade warm up while they're in the shade of that MDF as the moon passes by. That would be pretty interesting.
Entirely. Yeah, it just takes an Arduino, the size of a postage stamp, a couple of resistance-based temperature probes, and some coding, just logging. You could data log to an SD chip if you wanted to. Anything. It just real simple stuff. Frankly, you could just log to the console and then copy the text file into CSV and you're done.
I like it. Yeah, cool. Well, awesome. On that note, then, anyone else have any other thoughts about the moon? Questions about Moonlight, about the moon? Any other moon theories, etc.?
one of my all-time favorite moon hypotheses is that it's a solid rock that was formed when a Mars-sized object hit Earth during its early formation, and then the moon was made from that. and then like roughly, what would be like 13 billion years later or whatever, some dudes played golf on it. Like that's one of my favorite tales.
And
Good lord.
that's why the moon's mineral composition is so much like Earth's.
oh no, they're idenses. Oops. How do we tell the difference? Anyway.
Oopie.
Yeah, another little fun fact, about the same size as the core of the Earth. Pretty fun.
Oh, no way.
I want to see them get in a fight with each other, the moon versus the core. Who do you guys think would win?
The moon. It'll cool it off.
The real one.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The core's pretty warm, though.
Some say too warm. Too warm to fight.
Cool. Well, we can go ahead and close it up on that note for real. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And, so tomorrow night, maybe Schooling Glovers over on Earth Awakenings. And then Thursday night, definitely check us out for reading night. I know it's not always the most exciting thing, but we will continue to read Shankar's Physics this Thursday and possibly another paper or two. And then on Friday, people will probably be doing Flat Earth Fridays, so tune in for that. But thanks everyone for being here for Æther Roundtable 32. And also, if you have any thoughts, theories, questions, anything about the Moonlight thing, please drop those in the comments because... please drop those in the comments. And, we might as well close out with a little song. Let's see here.
Ooh.
Might as well. When in Rome, right?
Indeed.
When in Bill Gates's lair, you might as well take advantage of the audio streaming on Discord.
From BitChute.
Yeah.
Rock on.
Shout out to Bill Gates.
Hey, NASA liars, you just think your globe's so pretty. I'm 100 miles away, but I still clearly see that city. How about you? Does math explain this? I want proof, not some old goof. FE deniers, don't you worry about the distance. I can see you there across the lake while laser pointers glisten. Use your eyes. Just hear my words, see through the lies. Might be surprised. Globe, no way could it be. No controlling how we think. Stop your lying through your teeth. No, it looks quite flat to me. Appears quite flat to me. NASA liars, your deception spread so far. We all believed your lies cause we were young, but now we've seen the water, you're no good. Just believe because we should. Wicked brotherhood. Hey NASA liars, I've got so much left to say, but does it matter that I say to you gas pressure is contained if there at all? With gravity it does not fall, it fills it all. Lord, no way could it be. No controlling how we think. Stop your lying through your teeth. No, it looks quite flat to me. 100 miles, it's all the same, and we've got pictures from jet planes, and where is all the curvature they claim? Our friends are making fun of us, and we'll just laugh along because we know the truth no matter what they say. The liars, they made fools of us, the tinfoil has been left to rust, and now the world will never be the same. Let's end the game. Hey, you know they're no good, and I know they won't trick me like they did for years and years before, and I'll be asking them to prove their claim. Now things will never be the same. It's time to beat them at their game. Yeah, NASA lies to me and you know it's true. Lord, no way could it be. No controlling how we think. Stop your lying through your teeth. No, it looks quite flat to me. Appears quite flat to me. Fake glow. Fake glow. Fake glow.